How long do you need to obtain enlightenment and become an Arahat? Well, if you meet the right conditions, and especially the right teacher, it can be immediate. This is a story of one who has done that. This is the story of Bahiyadaruciriya. Very long, mostly called Bahiya for short. So, this is a story how one useful verse is better than 1,000 useless verses. Let's look at the Dhammapa verse corresponding to this. Though 1,000 verses be composed of meaningless lines, better the single line of verse one hears than comes to come. So the story goes that there were a group of merchants. They were sailing by as merchants do in those days because they go by the sea route. So there was a shipwreck and only one survived. He managed to swim to land and he lost everything, including his clothing. So he obtained, a bark of wood to cover the important private parts so as to not be totally naked. So some people offer him food and he was able to survive this way. And some people, because in those days there were many ascetics, the holy men, who would go around pretty much naked, even, with just little covering or completely naked. So normal lay people may mistaken him for one of these holy men, and they even paid him respect. He did not trouble himself to correct them and continued to receive their offerings of food and respect. Even though some people offered him clothing, he refused to accept these for fear that he would lose all the benefits associated with being mistaken for a holy man. So one night, Mahabrahma came to him in his dreams and told him that what he was doing is wrong because he was making people think that he was a holy man, an ascetic, or even an Arahat, an enlightened person. He knew very well that he was not an Arahat, and he admitted that he could see what he was doing was wrong. He was a man of wrong view, and he was giving people the false impression that he had obtained enlightenment already and continues to accept their reverence, their respect, and whatever offering that they could give him. And Mahabrahma, seeing that he was ready to admit his error, told this man, Bahiya, that there was this teacher called Gotama Buddha who was able to give really good teachings such that people could correct their view and even achieve true enlightenment. So, hearing this and getting the directions required, Bahiya journeyed the next day to wherever the Buddha was, and he traveled ceaselessly. It was a very long journey. And when he saw the Buddha was with his monks doing alms round. He was receiving alms from the people of that particular town. So Bahia was so eager. He went to the Buddha. He didn't wait until the Buddha was done with the alms round. He just went to the Buddha like you would if you saw your idol, your favorite singer or your favorite actor. It was, I've come. I finally met him, the person that I've been seeking. So he just continued on following the Buddha. As Buddha was, busy doing the arms round thingy, he was like, dear teacher, please, give me your teaching, accept me into your Sangha, do all sorts of things. I would do anything to be your student, kind of frenzy. So Buddha knew that he Bahiya had traveled great distances and ceaselessly, to come and gain his teachings. And he was definitely very excited. Buddha did not want to give any discourse. He wanted Bahiya's mind to calm down, be more settled, so that he was open and receptive to teaching. So he initially kept on refusing. He asked Bahia to wait, but Bahia, being ardent fan and all that, just continued to ceaselessly follow the Buddha around. Buddha was accepting alms from this person, that person. He was just following, tailing the Buddha like a puppy. So Buddha decided to just give him a teaching. And I will read this so I would get it right. Bahia, when you see an object, be conscious of just the visible object. When you hear a sound, be conscious of just the sound. When you smell or taste or touch something, be conscious of just the smell, the taste, or the touch. And when you think of anything, be conscious of just the mind object. After hearing these sentences, Bahia obtained enlightenment and became an Arahat. He just obtained Arahantship like that, on the spot, standing there in front of Buddha. This was the power of Buddha and the profoundness of his teachings. And he was, just this Arahant. Of course, people around him would know. If somebody had, this thing, enlightenment moment, eureka moment, or whatever you call it, people around wouldn't be able to tell straight away. But the Buddha knew. The Buddha, with his supernatural, awesome powers, knew the effect on Bahia. So he told Bahia to go ahead and obtain the necessary things to become a monk, things like bowl, robe, and other prerequisites. So Bahia set off to obtain this. And the Buddha and his monks continued their alms round and, of course, were invited to partake in the meal properly. So as Bahia was on his way, he was, very unfortunately, well, we do not know whether it was fortunate or unfortunate, he was gored to death by a cow. Now, this was not an ordinary cow. As the story goes, this was an evil female spirit who took the form and likeness of a cow. So she was aiming for him and she killed him. And after that, Buddha and his monks finished their meal. They came out and they passed by Bahia's body. He was lying on a heap of rubbish. And they saw this, and the monks took care of the body. The Buddha told them to cremate the body and attend to the body nicely. So they did. And after it was all over, they asked about what happened to Bahia. Buddha told them that he had obtained enlightenment and he was one of the fastest and best in terms of obtaining enlightenment or arahantship. The people around were a bit surprised. They were wondering how someone like Bahia, who had lived a rather questionable life, under false pretenses and wrong view, could suddenly obtain arahantship so fast. Standing in front of Buddha, listening to a few lines from the Buddha. So the Buddha said, the number of words or the length of the speech did not matter as long as it was beneficial. How true that is! You can have a long discourse, a lot of verbal diarrhea, and it wouldn't do you any good. But one important message could turn your life around. And that's what happened to Bahia. He was fortunate to have been able to meet the Buddha and attain arahantship before his death. And it was not only his good fortune, because he realized his wrongdoing and he journeyed tirelessly across great distances to meet the Buddha and seek Buddha's teachings. So he made the effort as well. Good job.